Chapter 17, The Dark Side of Leadership. Chapter outline, Introduction, Destructive Leadership, Managerial Incompetence, Managerial Derailment, the 10 root causes of managerial incompetence and derailment. Summary. The dark side of leadership. If you put a blindfold and threw a dart at a map of the world, then there is 70% chance that whatever country that dart lands on is run by some form of dictatorship. R.T. Hogan, Hogan Assessments. Introduction. There is a high level of agreement among scientists and practitioners on what constitutes bad leadership. And trust me, it's rampant. It's all over the place. Destructive leadership, associated with individuals who are effective at engaging followers, building teams, and getting results through others, but who obtain those results morally or ethically challenged or that undermine success. Managerial incompetence, inability to engage followers, build teams, or get results through others. Managerial derailment describes the reasons why people in positions of authority have difficulty engaging followers, building teams, or getting results through others. As someone who's involved in leadership training and has been since 1999, I can tell you that I have seen all three of these. And it's amazing. You must be able to identify what you're dealing with, properly identify what it is, because if you don't, you can't change it. You can't address it because, it's kind of like finding the problem but coming up with the wrong solution. Destructive leadership occurs in many settings and at all organizational levels. Occurs when people in positions of authority use their team building skills to achieve greedy, selfish, or immoral results. May be in the eye of the beholder. So destructive leadership is, a lot of times I think of it as self-serving. It's, everything they do is transactional. Something's got to be in it for them. It's not for the greater good. It's never for usually about the team. Not saying that they will not do things that appears on the surface about doing team, and sometimes they will, but most of the time they will not. Managerial incompetence. Incompetent managers have difficulties building loyal followings or getting anything done. Best rate of managerial incompetence may be 50 to 75%. One way to determine the managerial incompetence among people in positions of authority is to conduct the Dr. Gordy test. The person should count the total number of people that he or she has been led by or worked for in the past year. Then count the number of people in the group from whom he or she is willingly play, sing, or work for again. Most people would not work for a majority of leaders they have been exposed to. And this is where I see most of the time where I consider most bad leaders to be, is incompetent. And that means most of the time they're usually trying to do the right thing and want to do the right thing, but for various reasons they don't or can't. Managerial incompetence. Organizations may need every person in a position of authority to be a competent manager. Organizations may not need every person in a position to be a competent manager. Organizations with higher percentages of competent managers occupy critical positions are more successful than those with fewer. So when you look at good organizations, what they're saying is this: they're going to have more competent people and good leaders in positions than bad. When you look at organizations that's not so good or doing well or working towards the future, you're going to see that's reversed. Managerial derailment. Research has identified 5 derailment patterns: failure to meet business objectives, inability to build and lead a team, inability to build relationships with coworkers, inability to adapt to new bosses, business and cultures, inadequate preparation for promotion. So when you think of derailment, these are the 5 areas where they may be. And just on that alone, when I see this and think back of the people that I've worked with and been around in my careers and what I currently do in my personal business, working with being a coach of business leaders, they hit all these categories. Presence of only one behavior pattern is not enough for derailment, except for a failure to meet business objectives. The 5 reasons for failure are universal. Awareness of why people fail in leadership positions is not enough to prevent failure. Knowing the root causes of managerial incompetence and what to do to minimize their impact improves the odds of being successful. So when you just knowing what somebody when they're incompetent is not enough. You also have to know how to deal with it, how to correct it, and how to minimize the damage if you want to be successful long term. And that's where it requires true leadership. Somebody can say, okay, you know what? I've got a subpar leader over here. I got to figure out how to minimize the damage he or she can do. and also try to figure out ways to try to set them up for success. Why leaders fail. So you see leader, we see lack of fit, we see leaders, situations, and followers. So as we see here, let's look at the leader. And you read through those, you see the leader, you see the situation, and you see disgruntled employees. These overlap. Why? Because bad leaders will affect all three areas. And the lack of fit right there, you see? And this is when it really pains me when I see someone who has a leader who's not the right leader in the right spot or the right position, and they leave him or her there. And I don't get it, in the hopes that they would get better. Sometimes you just don't have alignment, and there are some people who you are asking them to do things that they're not capable of doing. Do you do yourself a favor, them a favor, or the company a favor, and leave them there too long? No, you do not. So the 10 root causes of managerial incompetence and derailment. So we got situational factors. Things is going on. It could be the manager was doing well, but before COVID, when COVID hit and it changed everything, and now they have to regroup and stuff, he or she is no longer effective. Follower factors. The fact that you may have a group of followers who can't get behind a specific leader. There's not a connection between the two. And subsequently, you have a situation where this person cannot get the maximum out of lack of organizational fit. Again, this is the wrong person in the wrong position. It happens. But you know, most of the time what happens though, people don't realize it until they put the person in the position that it's not a good fit. Lack of situational awareness. Situational awareness is knowing what's going on around you. And how do you deal with those things? Address them accordingly, because everything is going to be, every day is different. So the situational awareness is, I tell leaders, you have to have your head on a swivel. You have to constantly be looking for the changing things that's going on around you. Lack of self-awareness. Here's one thing, sounds very elementary, but it's true. Many bad leaders don't know they're bad. And guess what? If you never get them to understand that they are bad, you never get them to understand that they need to improve. Lack of intelligence and subject matter expert. There are some people that I've met who are very good people, have good hearts, and they mean well. They're not the most intelligent, or they don't have the level of intelligence it takes to do that specific job. Or they lack the subject matter expertise to do a job. Some things require you to actually know certain things, and they don't. Poor leadership. You just have some people who are just do as I say, don't do as I do. They are poor leaders, and they have poor leadership, and they're not capable of inspiring and motivating folks to do the right thing. Dark side personality traits. Dark side personality traits, give you an example. If a person is Jekyll and Hyde, you see her on Monday, she's good, nice and sweet, and good leader. On Tuesday and Wednesday, she is evil. She is mean. She is nasty, and she's yelling at people. And these are personality traits. Hers are up and down. She has mood swings or whatever. And she's the type of person that is not conducive to building the team and leading the team, because she's up and down. Leadership motivation. Does the leader have the motivation, has the right level of motivation to do what it takes to get the job done? He or she may not. And if they don't, you got the wrong person there. Misstep managerial incompetence. You know, you got to understand, you can't go by, well, my gut tells me this. You have to, when you look at managerial incompetence, you have to make sure you diagnose that correctly. That's the equivalent to saying that someone has cancer, but you're treating them for the flu. Well, it won't work. You have to figure out exactly what the level of competence and what type it is so that you can address it accordingly. Situational follower factors. Affects a person's ability to engage followers, build teams, and get results. Managers should control their reactions to overwhelming situations and follower factors. Incompetent managers face hopeless situations, tend to keep doing what they've always done but expect different results. Try to leverage their strengths rather than change, what erodes the ability to build a team and get results. Situational factors can mask managerial incompetence. So one thing that you find with these folks a lot of times is they're not flexible, they're not creative, so they can't think of new. They have one management style and one way to lead, and that's what they do because they can't think of anything else. I call it thinking on your feet and adapting to the situation. They cannot do that, and they think what they think a lot of times, and they want to leverage their strengths rather than change. Well, I need to have more, I need to give more input to them to get them to do what they do. It's not you need to give them more input to do their job. It's the fact that, you know what, situations has changed, but you haven't changed things accordingly. Therefore, the people can't achieve it so much. Doesn't matter how much more you get involved in the process. That's not a strength thing. Periodic versus chronic incompetence. So you have some people who will periodically, depending upon, I come to check on how they'll be good sometimes and sometimes they won't. A lot of times it's depending on what the situation is. And then you have chronic manager. Basically, they're incompetent all the time. You know, when they have a good day, it's rare. And again, for most of the time when I've seen these, I've seen few occasions where people knew that they were not good or they were bad and didn't care. Most of the time they do. They just not capable of doing it for whatever reason. Lack of organizational fit. You know, the degree of agreement between the personal and organization values. People who do not fit with the organization culture may wield over diminishing levels of influence, which interferes with the ability of others to engage and follow this. So when you have someone who's not a good organizational fit, and that means they could be great. They could have been a great hire. They could have great references. They could have a great working record. But you're actually putting them in a different, hiring them for a different capacity based upon their potential. And it's not a good fit. When you find something that's not a good fit, I can tell you, it ultimately, if you have a high performing team, eventually it will start to diminish and erode that, because you have somebody now who at some point is going to be an obstacle to that high performing team. Lack of situational self-awareness. Situational awareness is knowing your surrounding, your environment, knowing what's going on. When they don't have it, when the leaders do not have it, they don't make changes because they don't think they need to. Even though everybody around them may say, we need to do something different because this is not working. If the leader doesn't have it, it won't change. If you have a direct report, an employee who does not have situational awareness and stuff about something, they're not going to be as flexible as possible either about what they do. Self-awareness is the leaders when they don't understand their own strengths and weaknesses, understand their areas for development. If they don't understand, listen to this. If a person does not know that they are deficient or they're not doing a good job, that person does not change. If you bring it to their attention to let them know that they have some deficiencies, whatever else, if they don't accept it, they do not change. Once they accept it, that's when you have what we refer to as self-awareness. Lack of intelligence and subject matter expertise. So when you have some people, there's a certain amount of intelligence you must have to be able to do certain jobs. And that's, I'm gonna be honest with you, you can't improve intelligence. That's what you're born with and that's what you acquire and what you come up with. You cannot improve that. So there's a certain level that it is what it is. That's just something that you may not be able to. Sometimes you have people, I'll put you in a position that you're not gonna be able to do. Subject matter experts. This is people who have been working in the field a long period of time and they have the knowledge, skills necessary to do what they need to do. Well, there are some jobs where you have to be that. If you're not that, you're not going to get things done and people won't follow you. Team building know-how. How do you build a team? If you build a team, you got to build it you got to know. Look, give you an example. You could have a guy who's built 5 teams in 10 years. I guarantee you, if he's good at it, all 5 teams were built different because the situations were different and the people were different. Poor followership. People in positions of authority who are criticized as brown nosed and slackers, but are seen as incompetent leaders and managers. These are people who think they can politic their way to the top. They don't believe they have to earn and work their way up to the top. They believe that they can do this other ways. They don't have good work ethic. People don't respect them, and they do criticize, and they tear down, they don't build. And the followers subsequently do not want to follow people like that. Dark side personality traits. Dark side personality traits. These are, it comes from, I do know they come from, the first time I heard it was through the Hogan assessments. And I'll read this. It goes, irritating, counterproductive behavior tendencies that interfere with a leader's ability to build cohesive teams and cause followers to exert less effort towards goal assignment. Decrease a leader's ability to get results through others. Usually appear during crisis or periods of stress. Have a bigger influence on the performance of leaders than followers. Apparent only when leaders are not attending to their public image. resemble social skills and are hard to detect in interviews, relate to extreme FFM and ocean scores, can occur at any level of leadership, and are the leading cause of managerial incompetence. So when you see this, this is the dark side. This is where we say when things are negative, and everybody has a dark side. The difference is some people have a very little dark side and they keep it under control, and the others do not. But I'm going to tell you when the dark side normally surfaces. Again, it normally surfaces when people are under stress, duress, and crisis. And that give you an example. I've seen a leader, she was very good. She was very good. But in crisis and stressful situations, she would run around, start yelling and screaming at people, and which was totally counterproductive to getting things done. So dark side personality traits. So we see excitable, skeptical, cautious, reserved. You can read through each one of these. These are self-explanatory. As you see, when I referred earlier to Jekyll and Hyde personality, that's excitable. And I find this very interesting. If you read through these, you will see you've actually met some leaders like this. And if you haven't, you will eventually before you finish your working days. Here are some others. Read through at your leisure and read through those. But these are very interesting. And Adam, as a matter of fact, as you read through them, I want you to think about some of the politicians out there and some of the leaders out there you see. Here are others. Read through them as well. So leadership motivation. Those who lack the motivation to lead will most likely make poor leaders. So in other words, when you have people who don't have the motivation to lead, and I've seen people who don't have motivation to lead, they're actually followers who've been put in leadership positions. These make very poor leaders because they're not setting an example. They don't do the work that it takes to help others get there. And they're not people that can make cohesive groups of folks. They have teams on paper, but a lot of times not in reality. Successful versus effective leaders. Successful leaders network, stay on top. Stay on top of office politics, flatter superiors, do what the superiors want, demonstrate loyalty, do not make waves and promote and self-promote. So successful leaders do all the right things. They're politically correct. They do the things it takes to get the job done. They know when to, I call it reading the tea leaves in the environment. They know when to do things, when not to do things, when to say things and when not. Effective leaders. These folks engage and develop, follow secure resources, clear obstacles, build high-performing teams, and strategize. So the difference between effective and successful, a lot of times the successful folks are really about advancing their careers and being successful. Effective teams are about getting ahead and achieving results. The myths perpetrating on managerial incompetence. Leadership concepts that are adopted with the right intentions but constitute managerial incompetent problems. Leader humility reduces the chances of being promoted. Authenticity. Followers want leaders who can adjust their behavior to situational follower demands and keep their egos under control. Integrity. Bottom line is integrity. You know integrity? Definition of integrity. You do the right thing when others are not looking. And sometimes you have people who don't do that. And that makes it difficult for them to be leaders. Authenticity is, people want followers want leaders who can adjust as they need to and do the things that are required to get the job done in different situations. Sometimes it's referred as learning agility. Get in a situation you've never been in for and find a way to come up with a solution in a fairly reasonable amount of time. Summary. There are many ways for people in positions of authority to fail, and most people are not particularly effective leaders. What constitutes good and destructive leadership may not be straightforward. People with managerial incompetence have difficulties engaging followers, building teams, or getting results through others. Managerial derailment pertains to the reasons why competent managers can be seen ineffective, and knowing the reasons is not enough to prevent it from happening. Leaders and leaders-to-be can take steps to mitigate the impact of root causes of managerial incompetence and derailment of their ability to build teams and get results. That concludes this chapter.